Hello, welcome back here into weather update for October 1st here on CAYDEN'S Weather Center. Right now, we are paying attention to the tropics more than anything right now, as you saw in the last video, for the daily weather updates, but also, as we've seen from the thumbnail here, a lot to be paying attention to, so we'll get right into that pretty shortly here. Right now, taking a look here at what the United States is looking at currently right now, we can clearly see a little bit of rain showers continuing on in Arizona, New Mexico, and parts of Colorado, and then a little bit of showers going on over here in the northern part of Florida, but really those main showers and possible flooding issues are still continuing on the East Coast, with eastern North Carolina dealing with the biggest of a little bit of thunderstorms there. No big severe weather threat is issued for today. Heading into tomorrow, we can clearly see some scattered showers could be issued here for Arizona. We could also see some scattered showers here down in Florida. Same thing with the eastern part of North Carolina, that is including the Outer Banks, and then over here parts of the Ohio Valley, that's including parts of Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York, that could be dealing with a little bit more of some scattered thunderstorms tomorrow as well. Heading into that tornado wind and hail threat, there is no tornado wind or hail threat, so that's at least good news right there, and we're expecting this to be very, very dry for the next couple of days for majority of the United States here. We can clearly see very, very dry as we go on throughout today, going in throughout tomorrow. We're going to see a very, very dry area for the United States, the central United States. Definitely, it's all because of this high pressure that's kind of blocking most of that rain that is continuing on down. We will be having a cold front kind of coming down. You kind of can see that a little bit here, right there, that little scattered line there. That's a little bit of that's a cold front that we're paying attention to. We can clearly see, according to the HRR model, we can see a low pressure forming right off of the east coast of North Carolina, but the scattered showers will continue on over here around the east coast of the United States, and then these some rain showers will also go through eastern Michigan, central Michigan, going through tomorrow during the daytime. Same with Florida. We could be seeing some scattered thunderstorms there. Then we head into October 2nd, and this is how far the model will go out, but October 2nd, we can clearly see really still once again very dry here in the United States on the western side, or central and western side. A couple of little rain showers could happen over here in the northeast, but Florida needs to be paying attention to the tropics, as we'll be talking about that here pretty shortly. And actually, if we take a look here at this, and we're start heading into the tropics here, what are we going to anticipate from the possible tropical cyclone here? Well, you can clearly see this is the southeast here for the rainfall. So here in the next 90 hours, we're already starting to see, for the next 90 hours, we can already see that we're possibly going to be seeing almost an inch of rain over here in the Florida Peninsula. Obviously, still some rain continuing on in eastern North Carolina. That brings up to an inch right there, 102, 120 hours out. So 5 days out, there's that dark red. This will eventually push into Florida as that tropical cyclone will move its way to the east, catching itself with the cold front there. And we can clearly see already so far in the next 5 days, 1 inches here for rain in the central Florida, but then 1.5 inches down here in the Keys. So that's something to also pay attention to, as this will bring some heavy rain and heavy flooding. The more that this storm possibly could be intensifying here, it's not going to be a very, very decent looking storm. It's not going to be a big storm, so that's at least good news right now. Let's hope the models stay that way. But, a little bit of unfavorable environment will be going through. This will be sheared, but as we can clearly see in the next 9 days, starting to see some of those rainfall totals really picking up as we go throughout the state here. We got 2.7 inches here on the east coast, 2.1 inches in the central, 3.6 down here in the Keys, 3.4 for the Tampa Bay area. So that is something that we should be able to pay attention to and plan, because flooding, could be really a big concern here, especially, 12 days out as this tropical storm, whatever forms in the Gulf of Mexico here as the storm, most likely some models bringing it over here to the east, will not be moving very quickly, and that's going to bring that heavy rainfall threat. The good news is, according to this model, majority of the rain staying offshore, but still 4.5 inches of rain here for the Tampa Bay area, and same thing, 4.4 inches down for the Keys here. Heading into 12 days out, we can clearly see for the next 15 days, that I think we'll start to see a little bit more of that rainfall kind of push into Florida here, but it's something to pay attention to. We're obviously going to have that cold front coming down, but a possible tropical system could also be heading in throughout Florida as well. But in the next 15 days, according to the European model, 5.3 inches of rain could be anticipated here for the Tampa Bay region, and 4.9 for the Keys, while the rest of Florida kind of still sticking in with the 3 inches of rain. So still a lot of rain, especially from how saturated Florida already is. It's going to continue to add up with all the water. So that's obviously the last thing you still want to see. Heading into the tropic side here, Tropical Storm Kirk has also been named overnight here in the Atlantic here. This is good news. It's not going to impact anyone. It is expected to become that major hurricane right there. Probably by later on this week, by Thursday morning, we could be seeing a major hurricane. This will be rapidly intensifying. But it's not going to impact anyone. So that's at least some type of good news right there. But that will add on to how many major hurricanes we've seen so far this season, which we've already seen a bunch, but we've already had 3 landfalls in the United States this year. 2 landfalls here. No, 3, I believe. Yeah. Francine, no, Beryl, 4 landfalls here in the United States this season. So it's something to pay attention to, obviously. But the good news is, if you're worried about Tropical Storm Kirk, it's just going to stay out to the ocean and really just impact the fish only. So that's at least some good news right there. And this is what Tropical Storm Kirk does look like. We're having a little bit of issues with the satellites, so won't be able to explain too much of it. But, deep convection is still blowing up on the northern side. It's really starting to look like it's a very organized tropical system here. There's that bigger thunderstorms over here, some down here with those bigger bands as well. But once again, it's just going to be a fish storm, so nothing really to be paying attention to. And you can clearly see that majority of the models just bringing it up, pulling up to the north eventually. And there's a little bit of a spread, but it really don't matter because not impacting anyone. But the intensity models, you can definitely see some models bringing it into the category 4 strength here. It could possibly get there. It will be heading through a lot of favorable environment for itself, but right now the National Hurricane Center has it just at a high category 3, pretty close to a category 4 there. Now let's move into where our main focus is right now here on the tropics. What could we be anticipating over here in the next 7 days, possibly by this weekend? We could be seeing this area of interest right here in the Western Caribbean, possibly impacting the United States here in the future. Right now, we can clearly see that the 40% chance, earlier this morning at around, the 8 a.m. advisory, it was a 50% chance here for formation. But now it's down to 40% chance and still does not have a very high chance in the next 2 days. This storm will gradually move off over here to the west, northwest it seems, or the northwest, and then will possibly, regardless of development in this area, it will bring heavy amounts of rainfall to Central America and parts of the Yucatan. The question is, when it gets into the Gulf of Mexico, when does it take that turn? We see several models still pulling out, certain turns over here. If you do live in Texas, I would say this isn't going to be your storm due to that cold front that's kind of coming down that's going to cause the storm to push off over here to the east, and that's also the reason why that shear will be coming down. That's why this storm will be east loaded, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But taking a look here at the satellite picture, obviously we don't see very, very much. Not a very, very organized tropical system right now, and you can clearly see that the satellite's having a little bit of issues right here, but let me stop it right here. You can clearly see there's a little bit of deep convection and thunderstorms blowing up over here just north of the Yucatan. That's not associated really with this tropical system, as this is down here and will continue to push up over here near the Yucatan. So no matter what, the Yucatan will be getting some pretty heavy rainfall from this tropical cyclone. Heading into the European probabilities here for a tropical depression here, heading into 72 to 120 hours out. So this is from 3 to 5 days out. We can clearly see pretty decent chances still continuing to grow and rise as we go into the later days here with the model starting to really agree. But something also down here in the southwestern Gulf of Mexico. Then we head in 96 144 hours out, 120 to 168 hours out. We could possibly be seeing a possible northeast or east northeast motion here. 144 to 192 we can see. You don't see any of the models bring it kind of into Texas, maybe even Louisiana do some. There is still that possibility for Louisiana, but majority of that color is going into the Florida Peninsula. So that is, what we're starting to see here. And I would say if you do live in Florida, obviously this is the last thing you want to see right now, but definitely want to pay attention to this, especially as hurricane season will not be over here as we are just heading into October still. So taking a look here at the European ensembles, taking a look at this, we can clearly see your time is up here. So possibly by Wednesday, we could be seeing a possibility for that low pressure system to form according to the Euro ensembles here. Then we see it push up over here to the north and continues to stay off to the weaker side of this storm. So that's at least good news that it's not very, very strong of a tropical system here, as it won't be heading into as much favorable environment as Helene went through. So that's at least good, some good news. But Once it does get into the Gulf of Mexico here, we will see eventually majority of those models bringing it to the hard east here, and that will be because that cold front's coming down, pushing it off to the east, and we'll pay attention to that very, very closely here. But you can see some of these models, 985, 996, possible high tropical storm could be associated with this as well. But then you bring some of those in, not moving very quickly too, but brings it in and then brings it over here to the east. So big question still on the table, obviously, on where the storm could possibly go, but we're going to pay attention to it very, very closely no matter what. Taking a look here at the GFS ensembles, a little bit more of that spread here that we can clearly see around the same time frame here, just a day later. And then we kind of look at, the tropical system continuing right now to move off to that more of that northern motion, same with the European model. So a little bit of the agreement has started to come along here with the GFS. The issue I would say is, still seeing some of those possible, high 90s right there, 999, 994. So high possible tropical storm here could be anticipated. Maybe even just a Category 1 hurricane could be anticipated as well. And then you can see same type of scenario, models bringing it into Florida, but you do have some of these models that do bring it into different places. So obviously, if you live in this Gulf Coast right here, you want to definitely be paying attention to this tropical system here. But majority of the models bringing it into the west coast of Florida and could bring heavy amounts of rainfall. Taking a look here at the sea surface temperatures, obviously, this is the anomaly map. So what are we seeing? These blue areas that we see right here, that is below average on what time, last year or, from 1981 to 2010. This was more of above average at this time of year. So around September 30th, a couple years ago, that was a little bit warmer. So this is a below average on than what it's supposed to be, but we can clearly see for the rest of the Atlantic and the Gulf of Mexico, very, very hot water is still above average right now. The one thing I will say is Helene did bring a little bit of a break here for the Western Gulf or the Eastern Gulf of Mexico here. 28 degrees Celsius did change that water temperatures by a pretty good amount here. 27 degrees off the Florida Bend region, or 27 Celsius off the Bend region right here, but still in certain parts of western Florida, for the southwestern Florida and the central Florida, still 29 degrees Celsius, which is still something hurricanes would enjoy to have anyway. So taking a look here at the model runs, this is something we're going to pay attention to very closely as well, because models are going to be our friends throughout this. Obviously, these are subject to change. We've seen it, every day we see models change. But the GFS, here you go, you can clearly see over here, October 4th, not seeing much. A possible tropical storm right here, just off the coast here of Florida, is expected to possibly push over here to the east. You can definitely see very, very sloppy there, but could make that landfall of a tropical storm if it gets named just in about the Tampa Bay region, according to the GFS, and then brings these low pressures. We're going to start seeing these cold fronts coming down, but you can clearly see, the storm will continue to move off and just dump heavy amounts of rain, but the GFS was more yesterday kind of bringing it in over here into these regions, but now kind of changing it more to the central Florida coast here. So something to pay attention to with that. The European 12Z model here, we can clearly see, keeps it a little bit more of an organized system, I would say. I would say. It's still a very, very weak system, and once again, all of it will be on that eastern side there. You can clearly see this storm will not go off to the north anyways, because that high pressure that is also sitting over there, and we'll be having a front come down, and that's kind of what's going to guide this storm as well. You can clearly see continues to make that landfall just south of Tampa Bay. We can clearly see that. And as that front comes down, that high pressure builds in. We're going to see that change off to the east still. Same thing with the European and the GFS kind of agreeing with each other. Taking a look here at the Euro AI, we can clearly see there's your tropical system right here. Just between the Yucatan and Cuba, October 4th. So this does bring it a little bit slower here, and then does bring heavy amounts of rainfall over here into parts of South Carolina, and parts of even North Carolina and Georgia, and majority of Florida here, and then we'll make that landfall here near the Tampa Bay as well. So something to pay attention to. Obviously, you take a look at here at the GFS ensembles, or for the GFS precipitation accumulation here, what we could be anticipating. The GFS right now, until October 14th, bringing heavy amounts of rainfall, obviously, to the Florida Peninsula. Very heavy rain from that tropical system here, according to the GFS, for Central Florida and the Tampa Bay area. Really could reach up into some high numbers, possibly a foot of rain, but obviously these models are subject to change as well. The European model for the rainfall still a little bit of kind of the same, but a little different. Still keeping more of that rain offshore here, but still bringing some heavy amounts of rain into parts of really just that west coast of Florida here, and the Keys definitely could be getting some pretty heavy rainfall according to the Euro. And then you go to the Euro AI, a little bit of a different scenario here with this model. And we kind of can see it, very big difference, more of a northern, issue here for the rainfall. So more of the Florida Panhandle could be impacted by the Euro AI. So really is some big questions still on the table for us here. But before I end the video here, I want to go back. I want to look at this map really quickly here. So you take a look right now. Obviously, this is kind of today. We're not seeing anything big right now. Heading into tomorrow, we see obviously this high pressures, cold front kind of starts to come down, but we can clearly see this. The thing is with the cold front is there's not really any rain associated with it, so that's it. It's just going to be kind of some cooler temperatures that do come down. There's that low pressure system right there, or one low pressure system there, and kind of stalls out here in the Gulf of Mexico. You can see that cold front starting to dip down here into the Gulf of Mexico. Then it's kind of over Florida, and then a cold front does start to come down a little bit more with another cold front, and that is what's going to cause this storm to move off to the east. So big temperature changes also could be anticipated for parts of the United States as well, but we're going to pay attention to this tropical system as well. So please make sure you are staying up to date. Make sure to follow my X page down in the description for the latest information on the tropics and the severe weather updates here. We are getting through the tropics here. We only have we have 2 months left here, and we are ready for the tropics to end. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day. Stay safe, and bye-bye.